Good morning, this is Laufie, and Lost Ark just hosted its Summer 2023 Low-On event in which they outline all of the updates coming to the game in the near future. So if you woke up to the Lost Ark community doing their best impersonation of Quebec, but you can't figure out why, I'm here to give you all of the details in as little time as possible. Let's get into it. The Low-On event was opened with a quick shout out to players overseas that were sent in English, which was a cute gesture, but probably would have been better received if it had come in winter instead of now. The event immediately opened with the new class, Soul Eater, which is the 4th assassin in the assassin lineup, and she is indeed a DPS and not a support as many people have speculated. This class has 3 stances: Fiend, Dead Soul, and Demon. Fiend uses the Scythe, Dead Soul uses the souls of the dead, and Demon uses the power of demons. The class itself has 2 gauges. The first one is Soulstone that you need in order to use the skills in your demon stance, and the other one is Possession, which turns the Soul Eater herself into a demon. Not much more information was given to us beyond this. If you want to watch the full trailer, the link will be in the description. The next piece of content is the new Legion raid, Thaymine. You may remember him from the story as the guy who iconically said, He is the strongest Legion commander out of all of the ones that we've been fighting so far. We were given a few tidbits about the actual raid itself. First of all, the fight will have a gauge, but this time the gauge is not on the player like it was in Clown or Vicus, but the gauge is actually on Thaymine himself. How that gauge is filled, or what happens when it is filled, was not revealed to us yet. Normal mode for Thaymine has 3 gates, so this is different from the initial announcement of it having 4 gates total. However, the interesting thing about this raid specifically that we've never seen before in Lost Ark is that Thaymine will have a 4th gate only in hard mode. This gate is said to be extremely difficult to tackle and is actually said to be harder than Hell mode by the developer himself. So because of that, this gate can only be done once every 2 weeks. As far as I understand, hard mode Thaymine gate 1 to 3 can be done once every week, just like every other raid that we have had in Lost Ark so far. However, the 4th gate, because of how difficult it is, can only be done once every 2 weeks. This picture shows us Vescal, which is the next Guardian raid, which we've also already seen, much like Thaymine, in Low on Winter, so this isn't much new information for us. Here we see Automaton Hell mode, which was announced. Very expected, not surprising. Next up, more story and lore content to come in the future. There is a new area that's called Praeteria. Considering the fact that it was said to be an island, I doubt that it will have a major hub city that will replace the current one. We didn't get a preview of this new zone in detail, however we got a very small trailer that has to do with the story, but considering it didn't have any English subtitles, I have no idea what happens in it. One of the questlines that they have announced is a prerequisite quest for Thaymine raid. Thaymine uses Baratron, which is what his power is called, to siphon energy from its surroundings. So I am hoping that we're going to get some sort of Cataclysm-esque events in the world of Lost Ark, where we can see beautiful zones like, I don't know, Punica just getting its entire happiness and cheerfulness completely sucked out of it so that no one ever says Lili ever again. I hope to see Punica become a barren fucking wasteland. Alongside that, we are also promised a horror story quest, and that's just about as much detail as they get into. Next up, we were given a preview of the next legendary skins. In a very classic Lost Ark fashion, we were only given a preview of the silhouette of the skins, so the screenshot that's up on screen right now is the only thing that was given to us. With these new additions to the legendary skin lineup, Korea will now have 3 of them, and the West will still have 0. However, alongside the screenshot, they announced a rework to Yaz's chart that was probably one of the most bait announcements in this event. They mentioned players' discontent when they failed to get a legendary and get a piece of a costume that they don't want. So after the rework to the Yaz's jar, now every time you fail to get a legendary skin, you will get a coin. And with some of those coins, the amount of which was not disclosed, you can get a trail effect for your character. Oh, you thought it was the legendary skin? Oh no, it's not. Here we see the warrior model finally getting stretched out, so all the warriors' height can now finally start with the number 6. This is a change that was promised to us a very long time ago, so it's nice to see them finally deliver on it. There's a new pirate-themed Mokoko summer event, as well as new summer skins. Alongside some of the summer-themed updates, there were 3 different collaborations that they did. However, those collaborations are with Korean stores and brands that are not going to make it to the West, so I'm going to omit them. One of the more exciting parts of Law on Summer was the announcement of rework to the Hyper Express event. Hyper Express is typically aimed at new players or at least new characters to help them gear faster and catch up. They have changed the name from Hyper Express to now be Super Mokoko Express because they wanted to emphasize the importance of this event towards new players. The Super Mokoko Express will boost you to 1540, which is the item level that you need to do K-Angle Normal, which is a raid that had just come out last week in Lost Ark West, so we probably won't be getting this event for a while. They are keeping the 4 engravings that stay there for a while and then disappear, so you don't get them permanently. However, now on top of it, you also get accessories and stones. This is the part I was really confused on because they didn't clarify if we get to keep these accessories and stones or not. As far as I understood, on the accessories you can choose which stats you want, but I'm not sure what the point would be if they disappeared at the end, especially with the stone, considering that you also get the event engravings on top of it. So the stone and accessories are pretty much obsolete in terms of what engravings are on them, aside from getting vitality from the stone and the raw stats from the accessories. The cool thing about this express is that now, instead of getting level 5 gems, you get level 6 gems that once you hit 1540 get upgraded into a full set of level 7 gems. These are event gems, so remember you get to keep them forever, even after the event is done. And on top of it, you can roll them without any silver cost attached to it. However, to progress further, even though the event expires at 1540, once your character that the express event was applied to gets to 1580, you get 4 level 8 gems as well that are also event gems, so you also don't have to spend silver on rerolling them as well. And to tie this new Super Mokoko Hyper Express event together, you now get a full relic set instead of legendary set that also already has gear conversion unlocked, which means that in the first week, once the event is applied to your character, you don't have to spend time farming Volton and Vicus in order to build out your relic set. You immediately get the relic set that you want and you can convert it for Chaos Dungeons right away. Up next, they announced pruning some of the older irrelevant tiers that are extremely outdated and combining them into either just a regular story progression or altogether one tier, so you don't have to get bottlenecked twice, now just only once. To keep adding on to things that improve new player experience in Lost Ark, now there is absolutely no gold cost associated with honing all the way up to item level 1490. Starting from 1490 all the way until 1540, the gold honing cost for your gear has been decreased by 40%, which is a very welcome change considering that 1490 is the item level when you enter Brel area, and Brel gear is extremely expensive to hone in terms of raw tapping gold. Another great change is that you can now get Ancient from normal Brelshaza, so you no longer need to do hard mode Brel to build up your Ancient gear set. I'm assuming once you heard about no gold cost associated with honing to 1490, there is a little bit of fear that settled in your heart, and I am here to absolutely confirm it. With this change, the gold for Clown and Brelshaza 1 and 2 gates have been nerfed. However, due to the high cost requirements associated with the elixir system, which is something we don't yet have in the West, Smilegate has decided to increase the gold payout from the Akan raid. Now when you zone into Guardian raids, there is a preview of what items you need to use. We recently got free battle items for lower tiers in the West, and now that will be applied all the way until Congalanium, which is item level 1460, so new players don't have to worry about using their battle items all the way until that item level. The 2 legendary cards that are needed for the card sets You Have a Plan and Deep Dive, which were added recently into Lost Ark as powerful card sets for new players, those legendary cards have now been added to Traveling Merchant, making them much more accessible and easily farmable, as long as the piece of shit actually shows up on your server. Smilegate is also easing access to tripods by adding the tripod amulets for level 4 and level 5 tripods to first clears of content on your character. Adding on to that, Smilegate has also buffed the drop rate on class engravings on accessories to reduce the costs associated with some of the class engraving accessories that a lot of people need. And as a Deadeye player myself, I am very grateful for this because my prices for class engravings are absolutely out of this world. The Mokoko buff has been extended until Brel Normal, and the Prokyon's Blessing buff has been extended to K-Angle Normal, which is item level 1520. A very unique new addition to Prokyon's Blessing is that it will now give you an extra life in raids. There wasn't much detail behind exactly how it works, but the way most people have understood it is that in a situation where you would have died, you don't. I don't know if this resets every gate, update or every pull. There's not much details to go off of there. Next, we got a preview of a new upgrade system for your character because Lost Ark definitely needed another one of those. However, unfortunately, even after asking some of the Korean streamers, and I'm talking about people who live in Korea and speak Korean, there doesn't seem to be much of a consensus on what the fuck this thing is, because the wording for it was extremely vague and difficult to understand. The system is pretty much Minesweeper, and so far all we know about it is that you need it to fight Thaemine hard, but you also get it from Thaemine hard. So possibly this is something that you unlock once you clear gate 1 to 3 hard, but something that you will need to get progressed quite far in order to actually have a chance to fight Thaemine on gate 4, which is the gate that's set to be very difficult. Another update that a lot of people were really excited for is the fact that now, whenever you mail yourself to other characters on your roster, any accessories, tripod amulets, or even stones, you don't need to pay fions for that anymore. It's a really cool update, but it is also just about 4 years too late to the game. But I'll take it now rather than never. But don't worry, people who play multiple characters of the same class like myself will not just need one set of accessories to have their 5x3, because accessories have a built-in trade limit. But now, if you want to save up for a character that hasn't come out yet, you can now do that without paying the double fion cost. The battle items that you have already opened are now roster bound, so if you have a character where you accidentally opened 50 boxes of time stops, you can now put those time stops in the roster. There is now a selection wheel for emotes and dances and whatnot that you can bind to because they thought we didn't have enough slots on our bar. They're also pruning all of the pirate coins, so things like Guinness coins, Sun coins, all of that. Now, instead of having 5 of those useless things, we'll have 2 of them. They've also added a functionality to immediately port to an ocean liner, which is a minor but very welcome quality of life change. We will finally be getting the nightclub skin for your stronghold, as well as a few more minigames that can be played in there, including a PvP mode with projectiles. Another cute little update to your stronghold is that you can now display your currently owned skins on the mannequin, as well as put up screenshots that you've taken in the game as pictures in your stronghold as well. And lastly, there is a new battle pass that features a mount where a bird carries you around in the cage that is this game. But I'm sure you have noticed one very important thing missing from Law on Summer, and that is the exact reason why the community is currently on fire. Content fatigue was not announced in the official part of Law on Summer, however, it was left up to the Q&A portion of it. It was addressed very briefly, and even the way the developers have addressed this concern has left the community in shambles. They started off by saying that they thought about this a lot, and they aren't taking this issue seriously because they've received a lot of feedback from players about it. If you were expecting to have 1 Chaos Dungeon and 1 Guardian raid, I have bad news for you. They don't want to go that route. Instead, they focused on the difficulty of endgame raids, as well as focusing on the duration of the Chaos Dungeon. Instead of allowing us to only do 1 Chaos Dungeon with doubled rewards, they instead focused on improving mob density and increasing their aggro. So the Chaos Dungeons themselves look to stay the same, it'll just be easier to pull the mobs. A lot of people were expecting to see a lot of other things. Not just the disappointing way that they've announced the changes to the Chaos Dungeon and the direction that they're taking with it, but also something like the Third Awakenings that were promised last Law on Winter, and we still have yet to see any of them, or anything to be said about the Kazaros raid. Thaemine was announced during Law on Winter, the new Guardian raid was announced during Law on Winter. Some of the stuff from the Stronghold as well was previewed in Law on Winter, so I feel like half of this Law on Summer is just kind of updates from Law on Winter and not actual brand new content. We're just getting a little bit more details into it. As far as what I think about this Law on Summer, I actually think it's good, but only if you look at it in a vacuum. If you go into it without having any expectations, you look at the changes that they're providing, they're all really nice. We're getting a new raid, we're getting a new class, and we're getting a fuck ton of updates that improve the player experience. However, the reason why the community is on fire, obviously, is because people were expecting the #1 priority to be the homework changes and the content fatigue changes, and not only did they leave that until the Q&A section all the way at the end, making it seem very insignificant and small, the way they addressed it was also pretty disappointing because they did not take the direction that a lot of players wanted them to. However, once you've been playing MMOs for a long enough time, you kind of start to understand that no matter what you ask of the developers, even if they give you what you want, they won't give it to you in a way that you want them to. At the very least, I would say I'm happy that they addressed this in this Loa-on, because the two main points that I was really hoping to see in this Loa-on addressed were the new player experience and the current player burnout. Technically speaking, if you squint hard enough, both of them were addressed. In my opinion, what I think happened is that Smilegate decided to take priority for one. And if you have to choose between new player experience or the current player burnout, I think new player experience is more important. If you look at a player like me who's been playing since day one, I cannot tell you when was the last day when I didn't have rest on my characters and I completed every single raid on all 6 of my main gold earners. So for somebody like me, I don't really have to do dailies every day. So even though player burnout is a huge issue, so by any means do I want to disregard it or downplay it, it doesn't affect every single person. However, a new player experience is something that affects everybody, because no matter who you are or who I am, we were new players once. And I mean, a game without new players is a fucking dead game. What I think Smilegate did with this is that they took priority to focus on the new player experience first, and then figure out how to tackle the player burnout. Considering the fact that the new player stuff was previewed in the main section that had screenshots, that had previews, that had guides and all of that, they had a lot of graphics for it. It looks to be something that's much further in development than anything that has to do with current player burnout, with content fatigue, as they call it. So that doesn't mean that it's not coming, it just means that their bigger priority right now is tackling how a new player feels in this game. And let's be honest, the new players feels like fucking shit. Being a new player in Lost Ark right now, especially if you don't know anyone and you play by yourself, is an absolutely miserable experience. And maybe this is giving them a little bit too much benefit of the doubt, but maybe, just maybe, the reason why they left it up to the Q&A is to mention the direction that they want to take. Maybe they wanted to share what they thought would be good and see how the community reacts to those changes. So again, maybe I am giving them too much benefit of the doubt, but if things are the way that I think that they are, or hope that they are, maybe they will actually change the way they approach things now that they see how the community has reacted to it, because it's not very good. But I think overall, this is a good enough Loa-on. It's not the best and it's not the worst. It's just right in the middle. There's not too many new things, but the new things that are there are really good, and especially considering that they're aimed at a new player. We all play the same game. We know how Lost Ark is. I don't want to contribute doomer shit to this conversation. There is nothing of value to be added to a conversation that keeps reiterating that the game sucks. There are a lot of things that suck about Lost Ark, and there are a lot of things that I wish were mentioned during Loa-on Summer. But the things that were mentioned were really good, and I think they're fantastic for the future of the game, especially with the new player experience and how much and how heavily they are focusing on it. So we'll see what happens. I don't have a doomer attitude towards this. Overall, I was pretty happy with the roadmap. It could have been better, but let's be honest, it could have been much worse. Thanks for watching.